A horrifying discovery in a dumpster behind a shopping mall would lead to one of the most incredible stories of survival, fate, and unexpected miracles you'll ever hear. When a tiny German shepherd puppy was found abandoned in a trash bag, barely clinging to life, nobody could have predicted how this little survivor would not only find the perfect family, but would go on to save their lives in the most extraordinary way. This heartwarming true story will remind you that sometimes the ones we rescue end up rescuing us in ways we never imagined. The morning sun hadn't yet risen over the Riverside Shopping Center in Portland, Oregon, when Jake Morrison began his routine garbage collection rounds at 28. Jake had been working for the city's waste management department for 3 years, and he'd seen plenty of strange things thrown away. But nothing had prepared him for what he'd find on this cold October morning. As he approached the large dumpster behind the pet supply store, Jake heard something that made him freeze. It was faint, barely audible over the rumble of his truck's engine. A weak whimpering sound. "What the hell?" he muttered, climbing down from his truck. The sound grew slightly louder as he approached the dumpster. With growing dread, Jake lifted the heavy lid and peered inside. Among the black garbage bags, one was moving slightly. Jake's heart raced as he carefully climbed into the dumpster, his work boots crunching on cardboard and debris. The moving bag was tied shut, but the plastic was thin. Through it, he could make out a small form struggling weakly. "Oh, God, no," Jake whispered, quickly, tearing open the bag. Inside was a tiny German shepherd puppy, no more than 5 weeks old. The puppy's breathing was labored, his tiny body cold to the touch. His distinctive black and tan markings were matted with dirt, and his eyes were barely open. But he was alive. "Who does this?" Jake said aloud, his voice breaking with anger and disbelief. He gently scooped up the puppy, cradling him against his chest. The little survivor managed a weak whimper, his tiny pink tongue barely visible. Jake ran back to his truck, cranking up the heat and wrapping the puppy in his emergency blanket. He grabbed his phone and called his supervisor. "Mike, I need to make an emergency stop at the vet clinic on Morrison Street. I found a puppy in the dumpster. He's barely alive." "Jesus, Jake, go. I'll cover your route." As Jake drove toward the emergency vet clinic, he kept one hand on the tiny bundle in his lap. The puppy's breathing seemed to be getting stronger, and Jake felt a surge of hope. "You're going to make it, little guy," he said softly. "I promise you're going to make it." Dr. Sarah Chun was just arriving at the Morrison Emergency Animal Clinic when Jake burst through the doors. The experienced veterinarian took one look at the bundle in his arms and immediately sprang into action. "Follow me," she commanded, leading them to an examination room. As Dr. Chin began her examination, Jake explained how he'd found the puppy. Her expression darkened with each detail. "He's severely dehydrated and hypothermic," she said, "hooking up in 4. But his vital signs are stabilizing. You found him just in time. Another hour," and she shook her head. The puppy's eyes fluttered open as the warm fluids entered his system. Despite everything he'd been through, his tail gave a tiny wag when Jake stroked his head. "He's a fighter," Dr. Chin observed. "German shepherds are tough dogs, but this little one has something special." Jake watched as the puppy gradually responded to treatment. He'd rescued animals before. Cats stuck in trees, dogs hit by cars. But something about this tiny survivor touched him differently. Maybe it was a deliberate cruelty of someone stuffing a living creature in a garbage bag. Or maybe it was the puppy's incredible will to live despite everything. "What happens to him now?" Jake asked. Dr. Chin sighed. "Once he's stable, he'll go to the county shelter. They'll try to find him a home." But she didn't need to finish. They both knew the statistics for abandoned puppies, especially those with medical needs. Jake looked down at the puppy who was now watching him with bright, alert eyes despite his ordeal. In that moment, a thought began forming in Jake's mind. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in months. His sister Emma had been pestering him about visiting her family in Seattle. Maybe it was time to make that trip, and maybe he wouldn't be traveling alone. 3 days after his rescue, the German shepherd puppy, now named Chance by the clinic staff, was strong enough to leave the veterinary hospital. Jake had visited him every day after work, bringing small toys and sitting with him during his recovery. The bond between them had grown stronger with each visit. "I've made a decision," Jake announced to Dr. Chen as she prepared Chance's discharge papers. "I'm taking him to my sister's family in Seattle. They've been looking for a dog and their son. Well, Chance might be exactly what they need." Dr. Chen smiled. "I had a feeling you weren't going to let him go to the shelter. But tell me about this family." Jake pulled out his phone, showing her a photo. "That's my sister Emma, her husband David, and their son Noah. Noah's 8 and he has autism. They've been considering a service dog, but the wait lists are years long and the cost is astronomical." "A puppy isn't a trained service dog, Doctor," Chen cautioned. "I know," Jake said, "but Emma's a special education teacher, and David works from home. They have the time and knowledge to train him. And something tells me Chance is special." 2 days later, Jake made the drive to Seattle with Chance sleeping peacefully in a carrier beside him. The puppy had gained weight rapidly, and his coat was beginning to shine. His personality was emerging, too, alert, intelligent, and surprisingly gentle for such a young dog. The Thompson family lived in a craftsman-style home in the Ballard neighborhood. As Jake pulled into their driveway, he saw Emma waiting on the porch, her excitement barely contained. "Is that him?" she called out as Jake carefully lifted the carrier. "Meet Chance," Jake said, opening the carrier door. The puppy emerged cautiously, his nose twitching as he took in the new environment. Emma knelt down, extending her hand slowly. "Hello, beautiful boy," she whispered. Chance approached her, tail wagging gently. He sniffed her hand, then surprised everyone by sitting perfectly as if he'd been trained. "Did you teach him that?" Emma asked. Jake shook his head. "He just started doing it on his own. Dr. Chen says he's unusually smart." The front door opened and David appeared with Noah. The 8-year-old boy stood partially behind his father, his hands flapping slightly, a stimming behavior Jake recognized from previous visits. "Noah," Emma said softly, "this is Chance. Uncle Jake brought him to meet us." Noah typically struggled with new situations and rarely made eye contact. But something remarkable happened. As soon as he saw Chance, Noah stepped forward, his stimming calming. Chance, who had been sitting quietly, seemed to sense something about the boy. The puppy moved slowly toward Noah, then lay down a few feet away, his head resting on his paws, watching the child with patient eyes. "Doggy," Noah said clearly, the first word Jake had heard him speak in months. David and Emma exchanged amazed looks. Noah, who usually avoided physical contact, walked over to Chance and sat down beside him. The puppy remained perfectly still as Noah gently touched his fur. "Soft," Noah said another clear word. "Jake," Emma whispered, tears in her eyes. "He hasn't spoken that clearly in weeks. And look, he's making eye contact with Chance." They watched as Noah continued to pet Chance, who seemed to understand intuitively that this child needed gentleness. The puppy's tail wagged slowly, but he didn't jump or lick, behaviors typical of puppies his age. "Can we keep him?" Noah asked, the complete sentence stunning his parents. David knelt beside his son. "Would you like Chance to be part of our family?" Noah nodded emphatically, wrapping his arms carefully around the puppy. Chance leaned into the embrace, his eyes closing contentedly. "I think Chance has already chosen his family," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. Emma hugged her brother. "This is perfect. It's like he was meant to find us." As the afternoon wore on, the bond between Noah and Chance only grew stronger. The puppy followed the boy everywhere, seeming to anticipate his needs. When Noah began to show signs of sensory overload during dinner, Chance immediately went to his side, providing a calming presence that helped the boy regulate his emotions. "He's a natural," David observed. "It's like he already knows what Noah needs." That night, as they discussed making Chance a permanent family member, none of them could have imagined how this discarded puppy would not only transform Noah's life, but would one day return their kindness in the most incredible way possible. 6 months had passed since Chance joined the Thompson family, and the transformation in both the German Shepherd and Noah was nothing short of remarkable. The once abandoned puppy had grown into a handsome adolescent dog, his coat gleaming black and tan, his intelligent amber eyes always alert and focused on his boy. The morning routine at the Thompson house had evolved around the special bond between Noah and Chance. Each day began with the dog gently nudging Noah awake, a task that used to require multiple attempts by his parents and often resulted in meltdowns. "Good morning, Chance," Noah would say clearly, his speech having improved dramatically since the dog's arrival. The boy who once spoke in single words now engaged in simple conversations, always directed at his faithful companion. Emma documented their progress in journal, amazed by the changes she witnessed daily. "Chance seems to have an innate understanding of Noah's needs," she wrote. "He alerts us before Noah has a meltdown, provides deep pressure therapy during anxiety episodes, and has even started guiding Noah away from sensory triggers." The transformation hadn't gone unnoticed by others. Dr. Patricia Reeves, Noah's developmental pediatrician, was astounded during their 6-month checkup. "This is incredible," she said, watching Noah demonstrate how Chance helped him navigate social situations. "Have you had him professionally trained?" David shook his head. "We've done basic obedience training, but everything else, the behavior interruption, the anxiety alerts, the sensory support, Chance figured out on his own." Dr. Reeves observed as Noah began showing signs of distress during the examination. Before the parents could intervene, Chance was already at Noah's side, positioning himself so the boy could apply pressure by leaning against him. Noah's breathing slowed, and he was able to complete the examination without incident. "I've seen professionally trained service dogs with less intuition," Dr. Reeves remarked. "You should consider having him certified. This natural ability is rare." The family had already been thinking along the same lines. They connected with a local service dog organization, Pacific Paws, which agreed to evaluate Chance and provide formal training to complement his natural abilities. The evaluation day arrived on a sunny Tuesday morning. Linda Martinez, head trainer at Pacific Paws, arrived with a checklist of standard tests, but within minutes, she set aside her clipboard. "In 20 years of training service dogs," Linda said, watching Chance perform task after task without prompting, "I've never seen anything like this. He's anticipating Noah's needs before they arise." As if to prove her point, Chance suddenly stood and gently herded Noah away from a flickering fluorescent light that the adults hadn't noticed was beginning to bother him. He guided the boy to a quieter corner of the room, then positioned himself as a barrier between Noah and the sensory trigger. "He's already performing deep pressure therapy, behavior interruption, and sensory alert tasks," Linda observed. "Most dogs take months to learn even one of these behaviors." She turned to Emma and David. "We'll certify him, of course, but honestly, he could be teaching our other dogs. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." What they were doing was simply loving both boy and dog, allowing their bond to develop naturally. Chance slept in Noah's room, accompanied him to school as a registered service dog, and was his constant companion during therapy sessions. The changes in Noah were profound. His meltdowns had decreased by 80%. His vocabulary had tripled, and he was beginning to engage with other children at school, always with Chance by his side, providing the security he needed to navigate social interactions. Chance is his bridge to the world. Emma told Jake during one of his visits, "It's like the dog understands autism better than we do sometimes." But perhaps the most remarkable change was in Noah's empathy. The boy who had struggled to understand emotions was now attuned to Chance's feelings, noticing when the dog was tired or hungry and advocating for his needs. "Chance needs a break," Noah announced during a particularly busy day, leading his dog to their quiet spot in the backyard. He sat beside him, gently stroking his fur. "Good boy, Chance. You help me, I help you." It was a partnership that had grown from tragedy. A puppy discarded like garbage, and a boy struggling to connect with the world around him. Together, they were healing each other in ways that continued to amaze everyone who witnessed their bond. Neither the Thompson family nor Jake could have imagined that this perfect pairing would soon face its greatest test, one that would demonstrate just how deep the connection between boy and dog truly ran. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm for the Thompson family by Chance's first birthday. The German Shepherd had grown into a magnificent dog, weighing 75 pounds of lean muscle and unwavering devotion to Noah. Their daily routines were so synchronized that Emma often joked they could set their clocks by Chance's schedule. But on a Thursday evening in early March, something changed. Noah was doing homework at the kitchen table, while Chance lay at his feet, his usual position. Suddenly, the dog's head snapped up, his ears forward and alert. He rose to his feet and began pacing, whining softly. "What's wrong, boy?" David asked from the stove where he was preparing dinner. Chance ignored him, focusing intently on Noah. He nudged the boy's leg repeatedly, something he only did when Noah needed a break from an overwhelming situation. But Noah seemed fine, happily working on his math problems. "Maybe he needs to go out," Emma suggested, opening the back door. Chance refused to budge. Instead, he became more insistent, actually taking Noah's sleeve gently in his mouth and tugging. "Chance, stop," Noah said, the disruption beginning to agitate him. "I'm doing homework." For the first time since joining their family, Chance disobeyed. He barked sharply once, twice, and continued trying to pull Noah away from the table. "This isn't like him," Emma said, concern creeping into her voice. She knelt beside the dog. "What is it, Chance? What's wrong?" Chance released Noah's sleeve and placed both paws on the boy's chest, pushing him back in his chair. His amber eyes were wide with something that looked like urgency, even fear. "Okay, that's enough," David said firmly. "Chance down." The dog reluctantly obeyed, but continued whining and pacing. Throughout dinner, he remained agitated, frequently returning to Noah and exhibiting the same pushing behavior. "Maybe we should call the vet," Emma suggested. This could be a medical issue. They made an appointment for the next morning, but Chance's strange behavior continued through the night. He refused to sleep in his usual spot beside Noah's bed, instead positioning himself across the doorway and remaining alert. At 3 a.m., Emma woke to find Chance in their bedroom, something he never did. He was pulling at their blankets, whining urgently. "David, wake up," she said, nudging her husband. "Something's really wrong." They followed Chance to Noah's room, where the boy was sleeping peacefully. But Chance wouldn't settle. He kept putting his paws on Noah's bed, whining and looking at the parents as if trying to communicate something vital. "I'm calling the emergency vet," David decided. But the vet found nothing wrong with Chance. "He's in perfect health," Dr. Kim assured them. Sometimes dogs can sense things we can't. Changes in air pressure, electromagnetic fields. "Has anything changed in your environment?" They couldn't think of anything. The next day, Chance's agitation intensified. He shadowed Noah constantly, often physically blocking him from going certain places. During Noah's therapy session, he was so disruptive that the therapist had to end early. "This is completely out of character," the therapist noted. "In 6 months, I've never seen him act this way. It's like he's trying to protect Noah from something." That evening, as the family sat down to dinner, Chance finally lost all restraint. He barked frantically, grabbed Noah's shirt in his teeth, and physically dragged the protesting boy away from the table toward the back door. "Chance, no!" David shouted, but the dog was beyond listening. Noah, overwhelmed by the disruption to his routine, began to melt down. "Stop it, Chance. You're being bad." It was Emma who noticed it first, a subtle smell she couldn't quite identify. "Do you smell something?" she asked David. Before he could answer, the carbon monoxide detector in the hallway began its sharp, urgent beeping. "Oh my God," Emma gasped. "Get out. Everyone out now." They rushed outside, Chance herding them every step of the way. Once they were safely in the yard, the dog finally calmed, pressing himself against Noah's legs as the boys struggled to process what was happening. The fire department arrived within minutes. Their readings showed dangerous levels of carbon monoxide throughout the house, concentrated heavily in the kitchen and dining area where the family spent most of their time. "Your furnace heat exchanger has a major crack," the fire chief explained after his team's inspection. "Carbon monoxide has been leaking into your home for at least 48 hours. You're lucky your detector finally went off." 48 hours, Emma repeated, looking at Chance with new understanding. That's when he started acting strange. He knew. Somehow he knew. The next morning, as emergency HVAC technicians worked to replace the Thompsons' damaged furnace, Fire Chief Robert Martinez returned with his investigation team. He had been intrigued by the family's account of Chance's behavior and wanted to understand more. Dogs have been known to detect carbon monoxide, Chief Martinez explained. But what you're describing goes beyond typical animal sensitivity. Your dog was specifically trying to remove your son from danger zones. He pulled out a specialized detector and began mapping the carbon monoxide patterns throughout the house. "Look at this," he said, showing them the readings. "The highest concentrations were in the kitchen and dining room, exactly where your dog was trying to keep Noah from going." Emma shared videos from their home security system, which they'd installed to monitor Noah's safety. The footage clearly showed Chance's increasingly desperate attempts to keep Noah away from specific areas. "This is remarkable," Chief Martinez said, watching the timestamp. "Your dog detected the carbon monoxide at least 36 hours before your electronic detector. And look here," he pointed to the screen. "He's not just alerting randomly. He's specifically targeting the areas with the highest concentrations." Dr. Patricia Reeves, Noah's pediatrician, arrived at the family's request. She had been following Chance's development as Noah's service dog and wanted to understand the medical implications. "There's a significant detail here," Dr. Reeves said after reviewing the information. "Children with autism are often more sensitive to environmental changes, but they may not be able to communicate their discomfort. Noah might have been experiencing symptoms without being able to express them." She examined Noah, finding signs of mild carbon monoxide exposure, slight headache, fatigue, and nausea that the family had attributed to a possible cold. Chance wasn't just detecting the gas, Dr. Reeves concluded. He was recognizing its effect on Noah. That's a level of cognitive connection that's extraordinary, even for a service dog. Jake arrived from Portland that afternoon, having taken time off work. When he heard what happened, he brought with him something unexpected. The original veterinary records from Chance's rescue. "I've been thinking," Jake said. "Dr. Chin mentioned something odd when she first examined Chance. Look at this note." The record showed an unusual finding. "Puppy displays heightened sensitivity to environmental stimuli. Neurological responses suggest possible enhanced sensory processing." She thought it might have been from the trauma, Jake continued. "But what if it's something more?" Linda Martinez from Pacific Paws joined the growing group of professionals interested in Chance's abilities. She brought specialized equipment used to test service dog candidates. "Let's see something," she said, setting up a series of scent detection tests. Within minutes, it became clear that Chance's olfactory abilities were off the charts. "His scent discrimination is in the 99th percentile," Linda announced. "But it's more than that. Watch his problem-solving approach." She set up increasingly complex scenarios, and Chance navigated each with an intelligence that left everyone amazed. When she introduced a mild chemical irritant, safe but detectable, into the testing area, Chance immediately moved to position Noah away from it. Even though the boy showed no awareness of smell, he's not just detecting threats. Linda observed. He's anticipating their impact on Noah specifically. This is learned behavior, combined with exceptional natural ability. Word of Chance's heroic action spread quickly through the service dog community. Researchers from the University of Washington's K9 Cognition Lab requested permission to study him. "What we're seeing here could advance our understanding of canine-human bonds," lead researcher Dr. Michael Young explained. "The fact that he was found in such traumatic circumstances and then developed this extraordinary connection with child with special needs, it's like his early experience heightened his empathy and protective instincts." As the day progressed, the house was cleared for reoccupation with a new furnace and additional carbon monoxide detectors. But the family's perspective had fundamentally changed. "He didn't just save our lives," Emma said, watching Chance resume his normal position beside Noah. "He saved us with intelligence, persistence, and love. He knew we weren't understanding him, but he didn't give up." Noah, who had been quietly processing everything, suddenly spoke up. "Chance is special," he said clearly. "He was thrown away, but he became a hero. Like in my comic books, the parallel wasn't lost on anyone. A puppy discarded as worthless had become invaluable. His traumatic beginning had somehow forged him into exactly what Noah needed. Not just a service dog, but a guardian, friend, and lifesaver." As evening fell, normally slowly returned to the Thompson household, but Chance remained extra vigilant, periodically checking on each family member. His amber eyes held a wisdom that seemed almost human, a depth of understanding that transcended typical animal behavior. News of Chance's life-saving detection spread beyond the service dog community. Within days, local news stations were requesting interviews, and the Thompson family found themselves at the center of a media storm they hadn't anticipated. "We never expected this attention," Emma told reporters gathered on their front lawn. "Chance was just doing what he always does, taking care of Noah." The American Kennel Club reached out wanting to honor Chance with their award for K9 Excellence. The American Humane Association nominated him for their Hero Dog Award. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Jake arrived one morning with a special delivery. "The Portland Waste Management crew took up a collection," he said, his eyes misty. "They wanted to honor the puppy I pulled from their route." He presented a custom-made collar with a tag reading Chance. From trash to treasure to hero. The garbage collectors had also donated $5,000 to Pacific Paws to help train more service dogs. Every guy on the crew contributed, Jake explained. They said, "If one thrown-away puppy could do this much good, imagine what we might be missing every day." The local community rallied around the family. The pet store where Chance had been dumped offered lifetime free food and supplies. A prominent dog trainer volunteered to work with other rescue dogs inspired by Chance's story. The veterinary clinic that first treated him established a fund for abandoned animals. But the most touching response came from other families with special needs children. Letters and emails poured in from around the world sharing similar stories of remarkable bonds between children and their dogs. One letter particularly moved Emma. It was from a mother in Texas whose autistic daughter had been paired with a rescue dog. "Your story gives us hope," she wrote. "These thrown-away dogs seem to understand our thrown-away kids in ways others can't." Noah, typically overwhelmed by attention, handled the spotlight with surprising grace. As long as Chance was beside him, during a television interview, the reporter asked Noah what made Chance special. "He sees me," Noah said simply. "Not the autism, me." When asked what he thought about Chance being called a hero, Noah's response left everyone speechless. He was always a hero. People just see it now. The University of Washington formalized their research proposal, wanting to study the neurological connections between traumatized animals and children with special needs. The Thompson family agreed, hoping their experience might help others. "If studying Chance can help more children like Noah," David said, "then absolutely." The research revealed fascinating insights. Dogs who had experienced early trauma showed heightened empathy and protective instincts when paired with vulnerable individuals. Chance's brain scans revealed unusual activity in areas associated with emotional processing and threat detection. It's as if his difficult start rewired his brain for hypervigilance, Dr. Yan explained. But instead of making him fearful, it made him incredibly attuned to Noah's needs. A month after the carbon monoxide incident, the city held a ceremony to honor Chance. Mayor Jennifer Walsh presented him with a key to the city, a golden dog biscuit on a ribbon. "This remarkable dog reminds us that heroes come in all forms," she said. "Sometimes they wear uniforms, sometimes they wear fur." The fire department made Chance an honorary member, complete with his own badge. Chief Martinez, who had investigated the incident, spoke about the importance of animal companions. Chance detected danger our technology missed. He said, "He shows us that the bond between humans and animals isn't just emotional. It can be life-saving." But the highlight of the ceremony came when Noah was asked to speak. The boy who once spoke only in single words stood confidently before the crowd. Chance steadied aside. "My mom says I'm different," Noah began, his voice clear. "Chance is different, too. He was thrown away like garbage. People said I might never talk much or have friends, but Chance became my voice when I had none. He became my friend when I couldn't make any. He saved our lives because that's what friends do. Different doesn't mean less. Sometimes it means more." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. As the ceremony ended and the family prepared to leave, a woman approached with a small carrier. Inside was a tiny mixed-breed puppy found abandoned like Chance had been. "I work at the shelter," she explained. "This little one came in yesterday." After hearing your story, I wondered maybe you know someone who could give her a chance. Noah looked at the puppy, then at Chance, who was sniffing the carrier with interest. Everyone deserves a chance, he said. 1 year after the carbon monoxide incident, the Thompson home had transformed into something nobody had anticipated, a sanctuary for both rescue dogs and children with special needs. The tiny mixed-breed puppy they had taken home from Chance's ceremony, now named Hope, had become Chance's protege and Noah's secondary support. "Watch this," Noah told visitors, demonstrating how Chance was teaching Hope to perform the same protective behaviors he'd instinctively developed. The older German shepherd would position himself, and Hope would mirror his movements, learning to recognize Noah's subtle signs of distress. The University of Washington's research had led to groundbreaking findings. Dr. Young published a paper titled Trauma Resilience and Interspecies Empathy, which suggested that animals who had experienced abandonment or abuse often developed extraordinary bonds with vulnerable humans. It's as if shared trauma creates a unique language. Dr. Young explained during his presentation, these animals and children understand each other on a level that transcends typical human-animal bonds. The research had practical applications. Pacific Paws modified their training program, specifically seeking rescue dogs with difficult backgrounds for their service dog program. The success rate was remarkable. Emma had taken a leave from teaching to establish the Chance Foundation, a nonprofit that paired rescue dogs with special needs children. Their living room had become an informal training center where families met to share experiences and techniques. "We placed 12 dogs so far," Emma told Jake during his monthly visit. "Each match seems as perfect as Noah and Chance." The program's success attracted national attention. They received funding from major animal welfare organizations and autism advocacy groups. But the most rewarding moments came from the families themselves. "You saved 2 lives," one mother wrote. "My daughter and her rescue dog are healing each other every day." Noah had blossomed into an advocate for both autism awareness and animal rescue. At 10 years old, he spoke at schools with Chance and Hope beside him, sharing their story. "Everyone says I'm lucky Chance found me," Noah would tell audiences. "But Chance was dying in a garbage bag. I think we found each other." His presentations were unique. While other speakers used PowerPoints, Noah demonstrated the subtle ways Chance supported him. The gentle pressure when anxiety rose. The positioning that created safe space in crowded rooms. The intuitive understanding that required no words. The garbage collection crew that had donated to Pacific Paws became regular supporters. They started checking dumpsters more carefully, rescuing several abandoned animals. Over the year, Jake had been promoted to supervisor and implemented new protocols for animal discoveries. "Every life matters" became their unofficial motto. On a crisp autumn morning, exactly 2 years after Jake found Chance, the family gathered for their daily walk. Noah led the way with Chance and Hope flanking him, their movements synchronized through months of training and bonding. "Mom," Noah said suddenly, "I want to be a veterinarian." Emma smiled. "That's wonderful. Honey, what made you decide?" "Chance showed me that broken things can become beautiful. Thrown away things can become treasures. I want to help animals like someone helped him." They walked past a spot where they had installed a small memorial, a bronze plaque reading, "In honor of all the thrown away souls who became someone's everything." As they continued their walk, they encountered a new family Emma had been working with. A young girl with Down syndrome walked hesitantly with a rescued border collie mix. The dog, like Chance, had been found in desperate circumstances, but now moved with gentle purpose beside the child. "Hi!" Noah called out confidently, a greeting that would have been impossible before Chance. "Is that your new friend?" The girl nodded shyly. Her mother's eyes filled with tears of joy. It was the first time her daughter had acknowledged a peer in public. Chance and Hope immediately adopted calm, welcoming postures. Somehow understanding that this new dog needed reassurance, they lay down, making themselves non-threatening, allowing the nervous border collie to approach at her own pace. "See," Noah told the girl, "dogs know how to be friends. They teach us." As the 2 children sat on the grass, surrounded by their rescue companions, Emma felt profound rightness of this moment. What had begun with a puppy discarded as worthless had grown into a movement of hope, healing, and connection. Chance, the German shepherd saved from a trash bag, had not only found his perfect family, he had created a legacy that would save countless other lives, both human and canine. His story proved that sometimes our greatest treasures come from the most unexpected places, and that love once rescued multiplies infinitely. The circle that began with one act of cruelty had become an endless spiral of compassion, forever changing the lives of everyone it touched. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who loves inspiring stories, and help us spread messages of courage and